What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video of Imperial Cineverse. This video is going to be very different from my other videos, because today we're not going to exactly be Beyblading, we're going to be talking about Beyblade. Yeah! Nobody clapped today. Anyways, today we're going to just quit smashing. I probably will be stuttering in this video a lot, so be prepared for that. We're going to be talking about Beyblade. Now, when you think of Beyblade, let's get this out of the way. Beyblade Burst. We aren't going to be talking about the metal bays. We aren't going to be talking about the plastic gen as well. No, we're going to be talking about only Beyblade Burst. That means the single layers through the sparking layers. Now, we're not talking about Dynamite Bow yet, because we're talking about Hasbro. Okay, so when you think of Beyblade Burst, you think of three main companies, okay? You think of Hasbro, you think of Teratomi, and you think of the fake Beyblade companies like Flame that make, I think my Vexelucius was a Flame Bay. It's similar to Teratomi, but it's not to Teratomi, if you know what I mean. I don't think they're allowed in competitions. I'm not going to enter a competition, though, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about the Hasbro Beyblades, because this topic of a Hasbro Beyblades has been very controversial lately. Why is that? What happened to Hasbro over the years, and why is it they're getting so much hate right now? Well, that's what we're going to discuss in this video today. So if you like the video, subscribe. New sub goal is 100. I still got another 50 sub special coming when I get Save Your Voucher, though. So just before we get this started, though, I will try to give credit to where Hasbro has gone wrong, and also that Hasbro doesn't make just Beyblades. They also do make a lot of other really cool toys, so obviously doesn't really impact that much. So just want to let them down. I do not mean any offense to Hasbro. They did do a good job on all of these. It's just the community doesn't like it. So the years 2015, 2016, Beyblade versus hitting the US, whatever, and Hasbro is starting to make their decision. So let me just go over real quick what now, unfortunately, I do not have any Teratomi single layers, but we are going to be talking about single layers and dual layers at the same time. Let me tell you what a Teratomi Bay was like. So they had the stock. Okay, let me get one of the accurate stock combo. Lost Lunar, yeah. Lost Lunar, they had the accurate stock combos that you could buy. And what the Teratomi did was they had, let's see if you can see that, teeth in their base. They had these little markings right here, teeth in their base. And when you put the base together, they had little clicks. Most of them had 4, some of them had a bit more. Or not more, less, if you think about it. Some of them did. And the other thing about TT is that there were stickers that came with every single Bay that you can put on the Beyblades. As for me, I do not put stickers on Beyblades because they're too hard to put on, and also, every time I put them on, they just end up getting torn off eventually. So I don't put on stickers, but you can put on stickers. Now, what Hasbro did back in the single layer and dual layer days, they pretty much did the exact same thing as the Teratomi. Now, there are exactly a few differences. Here is Wyvern, single layer Wyvern. This is the, first of all, they gave them the accurate parts, arms, whatever this driver's called. It has the accurate parts. You know, it might be a bit recolored, like Cheeto. You know, Hasbro did make recolors sometimes, but pretty much it was the same stock combo. There were a few differences. First off, that Hasbro had already put the stickers on for you. Hasbro put the stickers on for you. Most of them, at least. And that was amazing for people who didn't like putting on stickers. Stickers were taken care of by Hasbro, and there were only 2 more main differences after that. Instead of teeth, they had slopes. Slopes instead of teeth. Let's just bring them side by side. Slopes and teeth. You can see the difference. Teeth obviously gave them stronger push resistance. I will make a note that Hasbro was nowhere near as good at competitively, but they never were. So what? Anyways, here are the slopes. They basically had the best fidgeting feeling. I've got big hands. At least that's what it seems like from the video. You could just fidget with them like this. And the last thing that was different is the QR code. Scan it if you want. I don't care. They put a QR code that you could scan on each of these Beyblades that would put it in a Beyblade Burst app that they made. And that was really cool. So back in the day of single layers and dual layers, there was one more difference though. This is my only Hasbro dual layer that's like a dual layer. I do have more Hasbro dual layers, but they fit into other categories that I'll explain in the future. They make recolors of some bays with other stock combos, but they've always done that. So those were the main, but they still had, like, for this horseshoe, they still have the blue horseshoe with its accurate parts. I just got the yellow one because it looks so good. Anyways, that was basically the difference between a single layer Hasbro Bay and a TT Bay, single layer, I said that, single and dual layer. They pretty much have the same stock combos. The only differences was the QR codes, the slopes, and the stickers were already put on. So that was also the launchers. We're not going to be talking about the launchers because you can just go on Amazon and buy a launcher for $10. It just doesn't really care about the launchers. So back in the dual layer and single layer days, they were pretty much doing the exact same thing on Teratomi, aside from the differences that I did mention. So next we move on to the God series. TT was making the God series with a bunch of gimmicks. And what did Hasbro do? They just did the exact same thing. So basically what TT did with the God bays, or what Hasbro would call evolution bays, was that they each had a God chip in the center that would, I don't really know what it did, but they each would have a gimmick. So, take Nightmare Lunar, for example. The closer it gets to bursting, the stronger it becomes. And you know what Hasbro did? They basically just did the same thing. Like, here's Genesis Valtryek. It has the God chip in the middle. It still has the spring-bladed cannons, blades, whatever. And had the same parts as normal Genesis Valtryek. The differences being the same thing. Stickers were already on, and they had the slopes and QR codes. Basically, that was it. That was pretty much it. There was one bay in the Evolution series, though, that was different. That was different from what, at least I think, was different. So, you know, pretty much Hasbro and TT were pretty much the same, except for the stickers, slopes, and QR codes. There was one bay in the God series, though, that was, for Hasbro, that was different, being Strike Valtryek. So, Strike Valtryek was basically this. They removed this, replaced it with the God chip, still had the spring-loaded blades, and just gave it these parts, but different colors. It had a green frame and a yellow reboot driver. That was it. But to be honest, that's kind of understandable. Strike Valtryek is one of the hardest bays to obtain with its accurate parts. Now, I do have 6-frame, and I do have an ultimate reboot driver here is my ultimate reboot driver. But I still would not have the accurate Strike Valtryek because I have a yellow recolor of it. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have recolors. I like this one, though. So basically, aside from Strike Valtryek, Hasbro was pretty much doing the same thing. You know, aside from stickers, slopes, and QR codes. So, but there's one thing about Switch Strikes that, oh yeah, they call them Switch Strike bays. They are way too expensive these days. Now we're moving on to the Turbo series, or Chozy. And basically, they had gimmicks for the bays, but all the Chozy bays had metal on them. As you see here, they had the teeth and everything, but they have a lot of metal on them. Some of them had extra gimmicks like, you know, turbo blades, but they all had some sort of metal on it, whether it was, you know, very few or a lot. So, what did Hasbro do? This is the point of the series where a lot of people started to diss away from Hasbro. And this was called the Slingshot series. So they still had the stickers, they still had the QR codes, and then they did have the slopes. But and they also still had the gimmicks. Remember from the God series, they still had the gimmicks of them. There were 2 differences this time. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but Hasbro did not put any metal on them. So my brother, Taryn, he has a Z Achilles Oh, Hasbro called the Turbo Bays Slingshot Bay. So he had a Z Achilles. He has a Z Achilles Slingshot Bay, and it doesn't have metal. It just has plastic. So that was one thing. Hasbro doesn't put metal on their Beyblades. They just put plastic. And honestly, I don't think that bothered a lot of people. But there were one difference. It still had the accurate layer of the gimmicks, including the turbo blades, the accurate disc, and the accurate driver, just with the QR code and slopes, like always. There was only one difference, and that was in the diameter. And they still had their recolored bays as well with their stock combos, which was really cool. There's one difference, however, and that was in the drivers. Hasbro wanted to start doing their own thing around this series, and they had incorporated this gimmick where you could raise the driver or do a little thing with the driver that you can, and it would go into something they called slingshot mode. And slingshot mode would basically mean they would go like, this would normally act like a defense type. I'm not going to launch it right now, but it would go super crazy fast. So if you get an attack type bay that's a slingshot bay and it doesn't act like an attack type, put it in slingshot mode. Now, the thing is, with slingshot mode, there was a good thing towards it, is that it was completely optional. So let's say you get this beautiful looking perfect Phoenix and has its parts, you could just use this parts. You do not have to raise the driver at all. You could keep it out of slingshot mode. If you wanted to use slingshot mode, you could, but you never ever have to use slingshot mode. You could always keep the normal drivers. I'm pretty sure Turbo Spryzen is the only normal bay that they released that I own. The rest are recolors or stuff like that. There are two bays on, however, in the Chosy series or Turbo series, Slingshot Bay, whatever you want to call it, that you kind of maybe had to use slingshot mode. The first was the Achilles. This is a TT one, just so don't get this mixed up. They put the slingshot gimmick incorporated for getting taller with Extend Plus. So if you want the Achilles to be on its tall mode, you're going to have to use slingshot mode. But, that's obviously optional. And then for Turbo Spryzen, if you put it on this mode, which I think is normally defense mode, it will go slingshot mode. So those are kind of base, but those are also kind of optional. So you don't actually have to use slingshot mode. So slingshot, or the Turbo series, it didn't have metal, and the drivers had their own little unique gimmicks. It drove some people away, but not a lot, because you could, for one, choose to use slingshot mode, and also, it had the same stock combo. So, I honestly, personally like slingshot. It's not as cool as the next thing, but I like slingshot. So now, let's move on to the next series. And the next series, basically, Territorium was doing GT bays, as Hasbro would call it, Rise. Everything started. This is when everything started to go freaking downhill for Hasbro. So their new series, this is the one I have the most Hasbro bays of. Before I start ranting about what went wrong with this, I'm going to say that they called it the Hypersphere system. And I actually like the Hypersphere system. I will explain why later. Actually, no, I'm not going to explain why, but I just like the Hypersphere system. Know that I personally like the Hypersphere system, but this isn't about my opinion. This is about most of the community's opinion, and I think that most of the community opinion will agree with what I'm about to rant on. So Hasbro, just know I like this series. It's just I'm going to have to explain. So before we talk about Hasbro, let's talk about what TT did with theirs. So Wizard Fatman is probably the best example I can use of this. Maybe Union Achilles as well. Basically, they had this gimmick in the layer where you could push these little two buttons, and it would give you the chip and the weight. Not all of them had chips and weights, but, like, Prime Apocalypse didn't because of its infinite lock system, and Imperial Dragon didn't have a weight, but most of them had chips and weights, and it made for amazing customization purposes, like Master Dragon and stuff. And that was basically what they did with their TT bays. They had the weights, they had the chips, and that you could customize them with the other bays. And they also, not all of them, but a lot of GT bays had the unique disc. This brand new unique, so Wizard Fatman had Ratchet. Union Achilles had the new, I don't know what this one is called. And then their drivers were all pretty unique as well. So what did Hasbro do? So they still had the stickers, they still had the QR codes, and they still had the slopes. And they still had their recolors and other randomness that they did. But, here's the thing. So, Ace Dragon. What they did with the chips is that they just put the chips in. Because of their slopes, you basically just had to push the slope and the chip would come out. Honestly, this was a pretty okay idea. I mean, they didn't have metal. They put the weights in. As you can see, there's a weight right here. And that was really... honestly, I wasn't bothered by the layers. Honestly, it's still made for amazing custom things. But the disc and the driver are where things slowly went downhill. So, do I have an example? I'm not going to use Ace Dragon's disc. Yeah, I know which one I'm going to use. You remember the Blitz disc? I don't have a TT one, but you know the Blitz disc. If you don't know it, it's one of the most competitive GT disc. It's really heavy. Here's Hasbro's version. So normally it has these red things under it that you could flap up. Here's Hasbro's version. They nerfed it down so you could only use it with frames. What? Now, I think they did this because of the drivers. And the drivers is why a lot of people. So, instead of their unique drivers, they turned all the drivers into the fat abomination of a driver. This was so they could... I have a Hypersphere Stadium right here. They could go up the Hypersphere Stadium. And that's pretty much what a Hasbro. Look at the difference. TT Hasbro. Oh my gosh. Now the thing is, like I said, I actually have more Hyperspheres than I do actual normal Gamma Bays. So that's pretty sad, honestly. I mean, like I said, I do like the Hypersphere gimmicks. But why they were so bad is because they nerfed the disc. Some were mad because they didn't have the weights. And they just turned all the drivers into these, which were super uncompetitive. I mean, to be fair, Hasbro's never been as competitive. But, you know, so I'm going to say one more time, I like the Hasbro Hypersphere system, but I would definitely probably recommend a TT GT Bay. That's kind of weird to say. Rather than a Hypersphere Bay if you want to go for it. So, and like, it wasn't even fair. Venom Devilois and Erase Devilois, I don't have Erase Devilois, were released separately, and Master Devilois didn't even get a left spin version. The normal left spin it has, it didn't even get a left spin version. I don't even know if it got dual spin. Lord Spryzen got dual spin though, which was fine, but whatever. Anyways, that is why a lot of people did not like... Let's push them all. I'm pushing them all to the side right now. That's why a lot of people did not like the Hypersphere system, because it nerfed the disc and nerfed the drivers, and a lot of people didn't like it. But to those people like me that did like the Hypersphere system, here we have our next system, Sparking. Holy crap, Hasbro, what did you do? One more thing before we move on to this. The custom bays. So, what I like to call custom bays are Hasbro's custom bays that they made with their Hypersphere. Like, look at this. Sword Dragon looks amazing. Wizard Luinor looks amazing. They combined and made different recolors. These are kind of similar to the recolored things I was talking about with their different combos. But I will give Hasbro credit to the Hyperspheres because they made amazing recolors to them. And amazing... You know, like Wizard Luinor is really cool. I'm going to get Tactical Leviathan later. It was really cool. So custom bays, really good. Alright, we're on to the last main series. Alright, before we talk about what Hasbro did, let's quickly go over what a Teteratomi Super King Bay was. So it had the layer. No rubber, no metal. Hasbro had the same little QR code, stickers, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff I talked about earlier in the video. Didn't have any of that. They had their differences, but they definitely messed up. So for the layer, TT just had, you could remove the chip, but they didn't have weights because they had these things called chassis. And what a lot of people, I mean, I don't know if this is just me, but I kind of like to call it the Nightmare Luinor series. If you don't know, Nightmare Luinor had the infused disc where you just put the driver in. They had these things called double chassis. Most of them had double chassis where you could... It was basically Nightmare Luinor, and it was pretty cool chassis, and you just put the driver in. There were some bays, like Jet Wyvern is the only one I have with a single chassis, where you could customize disc and drivers. So, it was really cool. Super King, the show, meh. But the bays release, awesome. So, what did Hasbro do? Once again, with the layers... I think they did pretty good. So with the layers, basically, they had the ships you could take out and the layers. And that was, look at this. Compared to this was basically an entire TT Bay. You know, you take the chip out. Now, what about the chassis? I didn't have the chassis. Well, they kind of did. So for single chassis bays, they just didn't have the chassis and gave them their, well, at least Roktavor gave it wheel and revolve, which, really cool, you know, cool, where it belongs. And what they did do with some bays, looked up for the future. I actually thought Speedstorm was going to be unique. So remember Lunar's 4A chassis? Do you know Red Lunar's 4A chassis? Here's what Hasbro did with it. They turned it into their own special disc. Yep, they turned it into their own special disc. And a lot of people, including me, really liked that. So a lot of people thought, oh, so for the bays with the double chassis, like, you know, Mirage Fafnir and stuff, they were going to get, and like the Limit Break bays, they're going to get their stuck almost, blah, blah, blah. They were going to get Nerf chassis discs. It's going to be cool. No. Okay, I don't think I have any exceptions here. I'm just going to have to talk. So Brave Valtryek, it has normally a 2A chassis. Well, the Brave Valtryek Speedstorm, I forgot to mention, they're called Speedstorm, didn't even have a Nerf version of this. They basically just put a random disc, I don't know what the disc is called, onto it that made it really bad. And honestly, without the chassis, they suck. No, not even all, like, you know Hyperion? This one normally comes with the Nerf chassis disc. I replaced it because I didn't like how it looked. But if you buy the Volt Knockout set with the blue Helios and the accurate colored Hyperion, you have to buy the recolors to get the Nerf chassis versions. That is not cool. And also, I mean, I bought the Nerf chassis version, and Taryn bought the Volt Knockout set, so I guess I could give him it. I'm pretty sure you all can tell where I'm going. Some days had Nerf chassis, but most of them just didn't, and it sucks. It really sucks. And the stock combos are just gone. And remember how I said Hasbro put a lot of stickers on? They're not doing that anymore. They're not putting nearly as enough stickers on. Now, I do not have stickers on my Beyblades to compare, but I mean, I don't want to compare. It's just, they do have some stickers, but I'm not even done talking about them yet, because we haven't even talked about the drivers. So remember the slingshot gimmick where you can make them a lot taller? That's basically what they did with the drivers. They made them a lot taller. Yep. A lot taller. That's really all they did. Made them a lot taller, which made them got off balance super easily. And I mean, it was cool, but they're super uncompetitive and they're not that interesting. I mean, just look at this one. I don't like it. I don't like Speedstorm. It isn't very good. Like, they didn't give us the chassis. They gave us bad Nerf drivers, like Hypersphere. Some bays did have the Nerf chassis and had pretty cool parts. These two are pretty cool, but the rest are just, you have to buy the recolors to get some of the Nerf chassis discs. Not all the bays, like Brave Valtryek never got it. It's very, very uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable, very bad. Okay, I've ranted about Speedstorm enough, and this is why a lot of people are hating on Hasbro because of what they did. Now, to be fair, I'm pretty sure all people knew Hasbro would mess up Super King. Like, with the Limit Break bays, they're giving them, like with World Spryzen, I don't have it with me because I don't own it yet, but World Spryzen Speedstorm, first of all, like Master Dev Voice never got a left version, and it came with Limited as a disc. Limited. Triumph Dragon, also known as Tempest Dragon, came with Armed, a single layer disc. They're not giving them their Nerf chassis disc, they're giving them bad discs. Okay. I've ranted about Speedstorm enough. I'm pretty sure you get it by now. I will give them credit. Some of the bays do have the Nerf chassis and are cool. And also the custom bays. The Tomb is one of my favorites. The custom bays that we're bringing on to the Speedstorm, like the custom bays. Those are like the only ones I think you should worth buying. Like this pack is a pack of custom bays. Really, really good bays. Honestly, Anubia is pretty good. Demise Tomb, not good competitively, but really cool design. But aside from the custom bays, not very cool. Not very cool at all. So, is this it? Is it too late for Hasbro? I mean, so in the dual layer, or in the single layers through basically the god layers, they pretty much did the same thing aside from the differences I talked about. Slingshot, all they did was really put a little gimmick into the drivers that was completely optional. But Rise and Sparking, they messed up so much. Like I said, I liked Hypersphere, but like I said, this is a community response that I think is right. So, yeah. So, is it too late for Hasbro? No, because there is one more series that I haven't talked about that might save Hasbro. So, this series, for some bays it doesn't have the stock combos for most of the bays. But what it does have takes care of that. Here is a Gamma Bay. Has the weight and chip, right? This is just a normal Teratomi one, right? What if and it has teeth. What if I were to tell you this is a Hasbro Bay? Would you believe me? I'm pretty sure if you've heard of this series, you already do believe me. We're talking about the Pro Series now. Now, I only have one Pro Series, so I can't really show that much. But here is Pro Series. This is Hasbro's attempt at making a Teratomi Bay. And they did right with the Gamma. I'm pretty sure they're releasing mostly Turbo and Gamma Bays, or the Gamma Bays. It has pretty much the same. It has the chip, it has the weight, it has teeth, and it even comes with stickers. I obviously didn't put the stickers on, but it does come with stickers, and it's like a TT Bay, which is really cool. Does not have a QR code. Don't worry, it still has a QR code on the launcher. And the combos they come with, while they're not, most of them are not accurate. They come, so it came with 0, whatever that frame is called, but they are doing something. Like, remember I mentioned that I had an Ultimate Reboot driver? Hasbro finally gave us an Ultimate Reboot driver with Judgment Joker. So Pro Series is basically their attempt at making a Teratomi Bay, and they're very popular. The only thing I should mention is that while these drivers aren't, even though they're Hasbro drivers, they aren't compatible with Hasbro Bays, and they are compatible with TT Bays. So, let's see, here's a normal TT Bay. You can put a Hasbro Bay TT driver. You couldn't put a Hasbro Pro Series driver on a TT Bay. Nothing wrong would happen, okay? It'd be really cool. It's really, really, really cool. But with a TT driver, you do not want to put them on the Pro Series because the Pro Series teeth are a little bit lighter than TT teeth. So don't put Pro Series or normal TT drivers on Pro Series drivers. For me, I wouldn't put any drivers on them if they weren't Pro Series. So this is the last thing keeping Hasbro alive, in my opinion, for their Beyblade Burst series. Pro Series is a really smart idea. They're trying to do their best to make really cool combos with teeth, stickers, and all that stuff. So Pro Series is an amazing idea. I only have one of them, but there you go. So let's go over a recap real quick. Single layers through the God series, pretty much the same thing, aside from stickers, QR codes, and slopes. Turbo basically just had a little gimmick in the drivers, but the same thing. That was completely optional. Rise, Super King, or Hypersphere and Speedstorm, they messed up a lot, but, you know, there obviously are some fans for those, but they did mess them up a lot. But they do have the Pro Series, which might keep Hasbro going. So that is how Hasbro has evolved. It's because I'm giving credit, they did try to do their own thing. They wanted to be different from TT, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people, and I know, besides me, you know, there are probably a lot of people out there that do like a Hypersphere and do like the Speedstorm gimmicks, but I know a lot of people are angry at Hasbro for doing this, and I'm sorry, Hasbro, but, you know, you kind of deserve it, but you kind of don't. You're kind of being a bit lazy, I'm not gonna lie, but that's basically the complete history of Hasbro's Beyblade Burst series. So if you enjoyed the video, please like, please subscribe. You know, it was basically just a discussion talking about Hasbro Bays, you know, all over the place, comparing them to some of the T-tier ones. Oh my goodness. So yeah, that was basically it. If you enjoyed, like I said, enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. And comment below, what do you think about the Hasbro Bays? Do you like them or do you not like them? Personally, I like them up until Hypersphere, I like them through Hypersphere and I like the Pro Series, but Speedstorm, aside from their custom bays, not the best. So that's my opinion. You know, maybe I could be completely wrong. Maybe Speedstorm is actually popular, but from what I've heard, it's not. So bye. Hope you all feel great Imperial today, And enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Our new sub goal is 100. Gonna take a while before we get there, but that is the complete history of Hasbro Bays. Oh, wait, gotta do this. Hasbro Bays.